welcome to another video. Recently, I've been applying to a lot of different art-related things, so I thought it would be a good idea to share some of the things that I've been learning as I've been getting into the industry. As you're starting to apply to shows and exhibitions, you might realize that most applications request an artist CV. This stands for Curriculum Vitae, and it is a big long piece of paper that demonstrates any of your educational background or training and your professional experiences. That sounds kind of scary, but I promise it's not as bad as you think. It's very similar to a resume where you would provide your education and then a list of jobs and duties you fulfilled, except in your artist CV, you're going to be providing a list of any exhibitions or shows you've been in, or any awards that you've won for your art. There's also a section where you can link any press releases that have been made about you as an artist or your artwork. Because a CV usually shows your last 10 to 15 years of experiences, I highly recommend if you are a young person that did art competitions in high school, that you list those on your CV. I cannot tell you how handy it's been to be able to list different awards that I received or shows that I was in high school, because they're still within that 10 to 15 year period. The same thing applies with the press release section. If your high school mentioned anything that you either have a picture in or shows your artwork or lists you on as participating in for art, you can go ahead and link that in that section as well. Having a CV aids in the application process because it lets jurors know how much experience you have in the field. If you apply to have a solo exhibition and the juror goes through and sees that you've never done a group or solo exhibition anywhere, they're probably not going to let you have a solo exhibition. If a juror looks to your press section and sees that you have a lot of press coverage and articles written about your art, that probably means that the general public is interested in your work somehow. Speaking of press, let's talk about magazines. Having your art in a magazine is a great way to add to that press section. Cut Paste Magazine is one that I will recommend time and time again because not only do they not have an application fee, but they also pay you if your art is selected to be shown. I highly advise against applying anywhere that has an application fee above $35, especially if it is an online-only magazine that does not make any physical print copies. And I would also advise against applying anywhere that has both an application and a publication fee. These companies are going to be making money off of showing yours and other artists' work. If you're paying a high application fee, or you're paying an application and a publication fee, you're essentially paying a company to make money off your work. That's part of why I like Cut Paste Magazine's model for this, because yes, as a magazine, they are going to be profiting off of our work, but we as artists are also being compensated for our work being used. So now that we know a little bit more about what a CV is and how to put things on it, let's talk about what we can actually use it for. The first thing is art exhibitions or shows. Not every exhibition will require a CV with your application. There are a few that might be a little more affluent that do require that just because they want people who are a bit more professional, but most of the ones that I found don't require that. So if you are an artist that's new to the industry and you don't have a lot of show experience, I wouldn't worry about that too much. In-person exhibitions are a little bit harder to get into than online ones, so I would recommend that if it is an option to submit a CV for an in-person exhibition, that you do so. You probably won't be making very much money if you enter in a virtual exhibition, but because they are a little bit easier to get into and don't normally require a CV, I found that they're actually really good builders for your CV if you're someone that's starting out. The other thing that a CV can be really helpful with when applying for is if you're looking to receive a grant. I didn't realize this till recently, but there are people and organizations out there that are willing to fund art projects without receiving a commissioned piece in the end. And these are the people that make grants. As far as I'm aware, there's two main categories of grants, and that is the restricted grant and the unrestricted grant. A restricted grant usually comes from you making a project proposal to an organization saying, here's my art project, this is what I want funding for. If they're interested in it, they will provide you the funds that you need for that project. However, you can only use that money for that project in the ways that you told them that that money would be used. You oftentimes also have to give them receipts to prove that you use that money in the correct way intended. An unrestricted grant doesn't usually come with a project proposal. Instead, you would fill out the application, go through the application process, and then receive the grant money. This way, you do not have an actual project that you're working on specifically for that money, and the organization that provided the grant does not require receipts proving that you use that money for a specific project. A lot of the times, as far as I've seen, the companies will go through and say you can use it for anything that really eases your life as an artist, which includes things like travel costs, the cost of supplies, and even studio rental spaces. You can find both exhibition and grant opportunities through websites like Cafe, but I've found that it is easiest to find opportunities through social media. Instagram accounts like Open Calls for Artists, Art Open Calls, and ArtConnect.opportunities are all good places to find all sorts of different types of art calls around the world. In the past week alone, I have applied to 9 different calls for different art things, including magazines, grants, exhibitions, and awards, all because I found them on those 3 accounts. Fingers crossed for those. By the time this comes out, I should know the results of some of those, so if you're interested, ask me in the comments and I will let you know how some of those applications went. You can also look up grants online. Make sure that when you're doing this, if you want to find ones that you're eligible for, that you are looking up ones that have something to do with you and your art. If you're between the ages of 18 and 25, look up young adult grants. If you are an emerging artist, look up emerging artist grants. If you're from California, look up ones for California. If you are Hispanic, look up ones for Hispanic artists. There are all sorts of grants out there for all sorts of people. You really just have to know what to look for. On a slightly different topic that still has something to do with this general conversation of art industry things, I've also learned that the definition of what a professional artist is varies between who you ask and when you're asking it. I have seen that in order to be a professional artist, you have to have completed at least 3 public commissions or made over $15,000 from a public commission. I've seen something that said to be considered a professional artist, you just have to be considered a professional by your peers. I saw something on an application that said you can't enter the professional category unless you've had your work on display both inside and outside of the country you reside in. I also saw something that said only the most professional artists have gallery representation. So if we go off of public commissions, I would not be a professional artist, but if we went by peers, I might be a professional artist, but if we go based off of whether my art's been shown in other countries, I wouldn't be a professional artist, but if we're going based off of gallery representation, I would be one of the most professional artists. I think you see the dilemma there. At some point, you kind of just have to know that you're not going to fit into everyone's definition of a professional artist. You can still be a pro if you are running an Etsy shop and have a lot of business going through there, or if you sell pet portraits that you make and sell through your own website. You can still be a professional even if you don't fit into all of the technical definitions that are put out there in the industry. As someone who's still breaking into the industry, it has been really eye-opening to learn about some of this stuff, and I'm sure there's tons more that I'm going to learn that I would love to share with you as I do learn it, but it's just amazing how much you don't know until you know that you don't know it. I will try to keep y'all updated on the different things that I applied for. There's one of them that if it went through, it would have my work shown in Venice, Italy, so that would be really cool, but not super sure about the chances of that. So I will try to keep you updated. Hope you found this video to be informative and maybe enjoyable. We'll see. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.